When it's time to begin, it's on the Rewind-A-Raw with John Pollock and waiting. The A-Team that makes sense of these things we see in the ring every week on TV. It's Rewind-A-Raw for Monday night. Download it Tuesday morning from the Post Wrestling site. It's Rewind-A-Raw for Monday night on USA Now on the John and Wai Take the Mic.
And welcome everybody to another Monday. I am your host for this particular edition of Rewind-A-Raw as John Pollock takes some much needed time off, coming off of a very busy weekend. But I am very happy to be joined here by Jack Wannan, writer for PostWrestling.com. Say hello to all the free listeners, Jack.
Hello, all the free listeners. Welcome in. I'm happy to be back here on Rewind-A-Raw. We got a lot to talk about. A very productive episode from the Boardwalk Hall tonight.
So Jack did reveal to me that he was feeling a little bit nervous prior to us starting. do you still feel that way? You have no reason to be. I thought we had a great half hour of news discussion in the XL edition.
I got all the freeloaders watching me. I mean, this is the post wrestling. I don't know if you guys have checked the Nielsen stats, the things like that. Post wrestling pulls huge numbers. So this is people are probably picking apart everything. The haircut I got going on here. This is a big stage, so
we're definitely skewing more towards the younger demographics here with Jack Wannan joining us.
Someone's got to do it,
Jack. I need to know, okay, as maybe the younger member of the post wrestling staff. What was your reaction to the Nintendo spot from Kyle O'Reilly last night?
So I don't know if you saw this on Blue Sky, but I got a lot of flack for. I was writing a report on this match, and I wanted to make sure I was getting the right console in the report. So I had to Google just to make sure that this was which Nintendo system he actually pulled out. I recognize it, right? I know what it is, but I just had to make sure that's not the 64, right? That's not the GameCube.
This hurts me like triply, dude. The fact that like this did not register to you. Nor like if he pulled out a Super Nintendo, would I think you like? What is your system like? What did you grow up with? What do you?
I grew up with the Wii.
Oh my god!
And listen,
I feel so old.
I got a lot of flack for this, and I feel like starting on this note, all the freeloaders hate me already. So thank you, Wai.
No, Jack, we are the ones that I think are need to be criticized because you are of a much hipper age than I think all of us. I think it's simply.
If you think it's unforgivable for anyone of an adult age to not recognize that system, I think you are qualified to go in for a checkup. Like you are due to go see a doctor and make sure everything's in tune with your body.
You're the hip ones. We're the ones with the bad hips. So
that's very true.
I love that. Thank you very much, Jack. And I look forward to a young person's perspective on the WWE product as we will get into here for our review of WWE Raw. This one comes to us from the Boardwalk Hall in Atlantic City. And according to WrestleTix, we had about 12,173 tickets out. This is above their year-to-date average at 11,000. So did you have any thoughts on tonight's crowd? Good or bad?
It was a decent crowd. I thought the Boardwalk Hall, it's just a very cool venue, super old school in its look. I mean, every single venue nowadays looks exactly the same, but the Boardwalk Hall doesn't. This was WWE's first time doing TV in the venue since 2008. So, we're not used to seeing this on TV, but I liked it.
So start off the show, we have the king of the ring, Obafemi, coming out to a tremendous reaction. He says, that is a good reaction for a ruler. Now give me a reaction fit for a king. And he says now he has to make a choice. And he is immediately interrupted by the returning Brock Lesnar, who also, of course, shows up with the returning Paul Heyman here. So Brock says congratulations and apologizes for not having seen King of the Ring. He says, Night of Champions. He says, everybody knows I don't watch the show, so I guess... if you want to be cool like Brock Lesnar, don't watch the show. He says he had to rely on Paul to catch him up on all the stories. And of course, I'm sure he's listening to this podcast as well. Brock says Heyman told him Oba's good at calling him names. And so Oba, he also says Paul has told him that Oba cuts great promos, which Brock admits he could never do, so that's why he has Paul Heyman there. But he says, there's an old saying that says, when you talk shit, you get hit. So he delivers a low blow to Obafemi, then delivers the F5 to him. And I felt this was, at least this portion of the review, offered a bit more of a more of a jovial Brock Lesnar than typical. One that is a bit more reminiscent of maybe Boombox Brock than, otherwise. And it's set up, I thought a pretty strong contrast here with the low blow. Brock then leaves, and this is when Obafemi asks for the microphone, says, well, I won't call you a name behind your back. I'm going to call it to your face. Now that you're in front of me, you're still a bitch. Oba challenges him to a match at SummerSlam. Brock says, I accept, but I'm going to one-up you. Hell in a Cell. So that is the match that we are getting. Cole immediately says, does Oba really want to do this? He's got a title match. More on this later, but as far as this segment goes and our challenge towards Oba versus Brock at Hell in a Cell, what do you think about the segment and also the match itself?
Yeah, so whenever Brock Lesnar grabs a mic, I kind of get a little scared because he had Paul Heyman by his side for all those years for a reason. I don't think he's necessarily the best. I mean, he admits it in this segment. He is not necessarily the best promo, but he was tolerable here. I thought this was a very simple but effective way to hype up the trilogy. Just talking about the match here, I think adding the Hell in a Cell gimmick to it gives it some freshness. We've seen these guys face off before, and we need something to give it a little more buzz, even though people are hot for it, as it stands. I'm on board for this, and I thought this was, they didn't waste much time with this segment. It was quick in and out, and got the job done.
I think the third match would have probably sold itself, but I mean, it being what you might perceive to be the end of a trilogy, if there was a time to raise the stakes and add something special to it, well, certainly Hell in a Cell would achieve that in a stadium, no less. And now you don't just have the draw of these two, but you also have the draw of the Cell. Yes. No allusions even to like this being any sort of retirement stipulation. Do you think that's still at play here?
I think they've completely retconned that out of this storyline. It's bizarre that we even when Lesnar explained his sort of return after that faux retirement, it wasn't really a good explanation. Like we don't really have a good reason for why that happened, other than he was in his feelings, I guess. So it kind of feels like they've just sort of convinced us to forget about that. And yeah, like you said, no mention of that here.
Yeah, I think his current status is that he is retired, but decided to come back for this match.
I think his status is that he's a very good negotiator and he knows how to get what he wants. And part of that sometimes is putting your boots in the ring and saying that you retired from wrestling.
Something about this kind of tells me that it might not be that different from an Undertaker situation where maybe the night of he actually thought he was going to retire and then maybe decided better of it. I don't know. We shall find out maybe on SummerSlam weekend whether or not he will actually retire. I imagine we'll find out at the end of the match.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that Hell in a Cell is part of the draw for this match. I guess it would be for TV, but to be honest with you, I cannot think of anything more dreadful than being in a stadium and watching a match that has a huge Hell in a Cell covering it. I think stadium wrestling in itself can be a bit of a hurdle for some people. And then you put this gigantic cage in front of the ring. I wouldn't be too stoked if I was going to this show, but
there will be a lot of watching on screens from the people that were there. I've seen a Hell in a Cell from a stadium for it was Taker and Triple H. And a lot of watching on the screens anyway if you're in a stadium.
That's true.
But it'll be impressive for the people that are there, and more importantly, I think it'll probably sell a few tickets if it wasn't already. So Paul Heyman is with Adam Pearce in the back, and Pearce says he would have appreciated some heads up about what was going on here. And then Heyman says tells Pearce to thank him for the main event that he just gave him, and this is when Austin Theory shows up. Austin Theory did not realize Paul Heyman would be there, and Heyman says, well, now you know. And he walks away, teasing some dissension and something going on between Paul Heyman and the rest of the division here. This is when Obafemi shows up with Adam Pearce, and he is asked by Adam Pearce whether he actually wants this match. Oba says that title opportunities will still be there, and he says he will basically defer his, or at least delay his title opportunity in order to have this match at SummerSlam. So They confirmed that afterwards. This seems to be Oba's only match on SummerSlam weekend. What do you think about that decision? Maybe just even in the totality of this King of the Ring story for Obafemi.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I saw a lot of really negative reactions online to this decision, and I just didn't feel the same way about it. I mean, Obafemi has this huge rivalry that really made him when he got to the main roster. And, he really wants to end it now and end it on the right note. I can totally see why his character would, prefer that over a title shot, which, as the way they portrayed it in this conversation, it's a title shot he is holding on to and is going to cash in at a different time. I kind of see this the same way as when someone wins the G1 and then cashes in their title opportunity before Wrestle Kingdom. Like it's you're just shifting around what is the traditional sort of format. I mean, listen, Lesnar versus Femi versus Lesnar versus Femi challenging for a title. I don't think you need to do both of those. With Femi, why rush everything? He's shown over a few months now since being called up to the main roster that he has this staying power with his heat, and the people really like him, and that doesn't really seem to be going away as long as they keep booking him properly. So why do you need to rush into this title shot that if you keep giving him this momentum, he can have further down the line and it'll be on another big stage?
My argument would have been, and I think I probably convinced myself of this too much in our discussions of the idea over the weeks, but my idea would have been to have him be crowned on the biggest stage possible through the biggest path possible, and that would mean possibly retiring Brock Lesnar and winning the championship in the very same weekend, right? I think that's the type of monumental feat that would be talked about for maybe years to come. I'm not so tied to it that I don't think what they're doing now would be successful. Maybe they have their plan for a bigger Obafemi match when the title picture perhaps clears itself out a little bit more, or maybe when I don't know, an opportunity to do the Reigns match better presents itself than this particular weekend. I do wonder though in all of this, because it's a very unconventional way of, I guess, treating the King of the Ring. What was the plan, maybe dating back to WrestleMania? Was this always the path, or was it going to be a bit more straightforward? Did things change over time in whether or not we'd actually find out about what those original plans were? Because some of this feels like it's patchwork, just with the way that they're kind of changing things afterwards. And I don't know if it's making for the most sort of straightforward story. At the same time, I'm not too upset about the explanation. It's it's not too awkward to explain. He's earned the title shot. He chooses to take it on a different stage than SummerSlam, and it doesn't really defeat my belief, in the fiction that would be allowed to happen. So
yeah, like you said, it could be patchwork. I mean, they had Femi as recently as last week teasing that he might go after Roman Reigns after he wins the tournament. Devil's advocate, Femi didn't know last week that Brock Lesnar would just suddenly show up this week. But I think the explanation makes sense. I think that part of people's sort of letdown of there not being two Femi matches in the same weekend is the fact that people have kind of been fantasy booking this for over a month now. I mean, when Femi joined the King of the Ring bracket, people projected that he would win it and still have this Lesnar deal, and it would be the 2-night thing. And it's been a discussion for a very long time now. So for them to go in a different direction, I think just sort of rub people the wrong way, because this was sort of the expected thing that we would see two Femi main events, which, to be honest, I was never too hot on.
So our first match on the show is Ethan Page versus Rey Mysterio here. So Page at some point threatens to take Rey's mask off, but Rey fights him off, and Page ends up delivering a side slam to Rey on the turnbuckle, working on his low back throughout the commercial break. Rey comes back with a barrage of high-flying offense. Page falls in position for a 619, but counters the move with a big boot. Page then goes up top for a fireman's carry type of move, but Rey very impressively counters with a Rana, and he follows this with a 619 and then a frog splash for the victory. In the match itself, I thought was quite standard Rey Mysterio fare at this point for television. But I will say as the years progress, I recognize how easy it is to even take this level of performance for granted from Rey Mysterio, you know, just given, I'm sure, like this, I don't know what the current state of his body is, but like he, even pulling this off, I feel like it must be a bit of a challenge for him. What do you think about the match?
Yeah, I really enjoyed the match. I think Ethan Page has proven time and again that there are just little small details in his matches that take it above sort of the average performance to me. He had this really great moment here where he was hit with a move by Ray and then very clearly playing possum fell into the 619 position. It was like very blatant the way he sort of danced across the ring into the position. And then when Ray went for the move, like you said, he sprung up and kicked him in the head. So there are little fun things that Page adds to his matches that make it feel less like sort of just running through the motions and seeing, you know, what you would typically see from a match from either of these guys. I don't really know where you go with Page here. Like this kind of felt like their way of saying like, okay, well, now we don't really have anything for him now. I mean,
yeah, seems firmly stuck in the mid card, which again, I don't think it's a wrong place to, like, a bad place to be at for somebody like him. Like I'm also keeping in mind that like this is a man who has already way overachieved, I think, like anybody's expectations for the WWE system. He's the type of name that I wondered if like they would have had, well, certainly be NXT champion, nor advance even out of NXT to the main roster. Thing is, he's getting time on TV to perform, and like you said, John, Jack, like I'm very used to saying John on these shows, but you know, like you said, Jack, like he stood out to me, like in this sort of performance for just like his ability to play. I think a very like savvy, you know, veteran in being able to play just like a very strong heel in being able to like push the little things, you know, do the little things really, really well against the babyface of all babyfaces in Rey Mysterio. So hopefully that reflects well on like towards the office, on how talented he is and how capable he probably is of something way bigger than, you know, just this, of course.
Yeah, I'm not really too married to the idea that he needs like a title or he needs to be, you know, in this really huge push, but Page is the type of guy who, you know, you want to keep him in programs. You know, once he finishes one thing, you keep him on TV and you keep him doing something else. And the wins or losses for this guy, really, just because of how good his work is, doesn't matter. Just keep him doing stuff. And I think he is a huge asset for the show.
He can be like a Miz who's actually capable of stronger in-ring performances for them. Like, I think he has all the sort of like heelish charisma capable of that sort of role. So then we go to the back here. We've got JD and Dom in Danhausen's lab. Danhausen is not there, so Dom instead finds a framed jersey gifted to him by the Knicks, and they decide to steal it to lure Danhausen, and JD and Dom also decide to wreck his lair. More on this later.
Part of me thinks, like, because they're still talking about the Knicks win, and I get they should have capitalized on it, but part of me wonders, like, is this the type of thing where, like, months from now, you know, WWE still going to be talking about the Knicks winning the championship? And it's like, guys, like, we kind of moved on from this.
I imagine it's all building to the MSG show for Saturday night's main event about like two and some weeks from now. But I mean, if they keep talking about it beyond that wouldn't really shock me either. Let's go to Joe Hendry up next, who is here for a new concert, and he introduces us to a special guest, the Street Profits, who are, of course, your new tag team champions. The Profits have a few people to thank for their title win, and that includes the WWE Universe, Seth Rollins, and Joe Hendry, and they join Joe Hendry for a new song. This new song is about Austin Theory being all alone now that Braun Breaker and Logan are out of the picture, at least for now, and Heyman's busy with Brock. So the Austin Theory cries himself to sleep at night since John Cena destroyed him on the mic. And this is when, your thoughts on the song? Are you a fan of, were you a fan of tonight's?
Well, I feel like Theory, because you're about to mention that he cuts this off. He kind of came with a good fact check mentioning that he actually did win that feud with Cena. I mean, Cena did destroy him on the mic, but the more important part of it was he beat Cena at WrestleMania. So, I mean, I don't know. Like, I feel like you gotta have your facts in check if you're gonna go for a diss track like this, right?
Did he actually say that did he bring that up that he beat John Cena?
Yeah.
Oh, he did. Okay, because I must have just been too busy typing notes because I just thought he acknowledged Cena destroying him on the mic, just like how I'm going to destroy your ass in this ring tonight.
He did acknowledge that he was destroyed on the mic.
Okay.
But he also said, you know, he had that concession, but that he won the match too.
Okay. All right. Well, that is good then. So Hendry says Joe says no, then challenges him to a match right now rather than later tonight. So
One detail worth noting in there is that Theory says that the Vision have a title rematch next week against the Street Profits. How do you feel about that?
I just take these to usually be like confirmations of, you know, the new champions like being like moving on, you know. So
Yeah.
I'm okay with it. Like I think more intriguing is whether or not it leads to the actual breakup of the Vision, which this seems to be on the rocks at the moment.
Yeah.
You know. So yeah, we'll see. So Joe Hendry versus Austin Theory. Hendry hits his hit single spinning clothesline for 2 count. Theory comes back with a spinning forearm for 2. Hendry then ends up catching this sort of jumping Uranagi where he lands on his back. Cole called it the standing ovation. This was not the standing ovation. It was it looked something quite different here. I don't know the name of this, but he won with the move. Your thoughts, if any, on the match?
This was a relatively quick match. I think it went about 6 minutes. And man, I mean, I'm not stoked to watch the Vision challenge for the tag titles next week after seeing Theory kind of get handled quickly by Hendry, who, let's keep in mind, this was like his 4th main roster match. He's still a relatively fresh name on the main roster. Yeah.
It's very true. Like, this is really no way to build to a tag title challenge. And, you know, again, leads you to the idea that perhaps Heyman is now sick of the Vision and will be disbanding the group shortly. We also got Austin Theory building something new with Maxine. So could this just be their way of, like, I don't know, having him lose en route to some sort of character transformation?
I'm going to be honest, I really hope so. I think the Vision has run its course. I think it's gonna be one of those groups that like will be remembered as a what could have been, just in terms of how much injuries sidetracked basically every single step of the group's time on the main roster. But you know, Theory, all these guys should go their different ways, and you know, they can be booked as solo roles. I think they don't need this group, which I'm honestly kind of. I have Vision fatigue at this point.
For the sake of the health of this roster, I think they should disband this group and just name them something else so nobody else gets injured. So in the back, we got Raquel with Adam Pearce. Raquel wants an IC title shot, and Pearce claims that Maxine has also asked for one, so Pearce makes the match for tonight. This is when Liv comes in with Roxanne, and I love when they just like call each other sister. Like, that's the first thing they say to each other, sister. It's just, I think it's so disingenuous and so awesome. So Liv wants to know what they're going to be doing about Io and Danhausen. And Raquel says, don't worry, she has her back. So more on this later. We've got Io Sky coming out next. She is the queen of the ring, and she is super duper grateful to come back to the U.S. as the queen. And she actually puts the crown on, which she did do. Somebody corrected me on the actual pay-per-view itself. So she'll beat Liv again and become champion, she says. This is when Liv interrupts. Says Io got lucky last night and blames the loss on Danhausen. She brings up Finn Balor and Stephanie Becerra and Rhea Ripley as some of her recent victims. Says Ripley has not been the same since she's taken everything away from her, hitting a sore spot for Io, of course, and she promises to do the same to Io at SummerSlam. This is when Raquel and Roxanne try to attack her from behind, but Io fights them off, hits the German to Liv, then a big buzzsaw kick, but the 3-on-1 becomes too much. At this point, the crowd is chanting for Rhea, but she is not there. The Oblivion instead lays Io out, and this is before Liv applies her half-crab submission once again. So, you know, this outcome really seems to beg for Io's friends to come back to help her, and I mean, of course, it could be Rhea, although I don't know what sort of SummerSlam program that would lead to. Maybe more likely to me, it feels like it opens the door for Stephanie Becerra to come back, which was referenced here from Liv.
Right. Yeah, no, that would make sense. And I think that, you know, you don't want to have Rhea sort of play the side role in a, just because of how big of a name she is right now, you don't want to have her sort of play the side role in someone else's feud. I can't really blame the fans here for chanting for Rhea. This was a double taping. They were taping SmackDown after Raw, so Rhea was presumably in the building for this event, which most weeks she isn't.
I mean, we don't know her status, you know, from injury, so
that's true. That's true.
I don't actually think she. Yeah, I feel like we would have heard if she was there, but yes, the audience may have expected that, you know, just given it being SmackDown. But okay, interest in the match?
Yeah, I mean, I think that like when this match was first announced, I was wondering like how people would feel about seeing a rematch immediately after their their showdown from last weekend. I'm pretty indifferent to it, to be honest with you. How do you feel?
Well, this is one where I feel like it certainly could have used an extra stipulation, just because the first match was okay. It didn't blow away my sort of expectations for a second one, and I mean, I feel like this could have used maybe something. It also, of course, maybe calls to question, like, what exactly was the original plan, whether or not Rhea was going to be the opponent for Io Sky prior to whatever injury she's currently dealing with. Did they have to pivot and change plans? It also makes you wonder what the initial plans for Liv would have been, if not, Io Sky in this role. So, all things we may find out in the future.
It is interesting. I mean, this storyline, out of all the possibilities they could have done through Queen of the Ring and the who challenges who, like, this is one that kind of has like the least amount of actual depth storyline wise to it. Which does make you think, like, if something happened that made it get shuffled around.
If there's depth to be built, I mean, they have a couple weeks,
that is true.
To maybe deepen the story. We'll see if they get there.
Before you move on, I do want to say I appreciate you were showing the graphic that showed a SummerSlam Minnesota on the.
Oh my God! Yes, Minnesota. Oh man, yeah. Rightfully being called up for, I mean, maybe suspected use of AI in the creation of this.
I mean, B and S are very far away on the keyboard, so I don't think this was someone hitting the wrong letter.
It doesn't even look like so much a B as like just a poorly rendered S for some reason, right?
Looks like there was looks like someone accidentally put like a smudge on the screen.
Yeah, I mean, WWE has been certainly using AI a lot in like even like all of their graphics, for pay-per-views and whatnot, and yeah, interesting how something like this would slip past their production. All right, so we got up next, Jimmy Uso taking on LA Knight in a rematch from, I think this was last week.
Last week, yep.
So forgettable, I'm sorry. Jay Uso is on commentary here. Jay is saying that Oba tapped, so he's kind of carrying through the storyline he's been posting on social media about, I guess, showing what a frame of like Oba just tapping once, while being in his sleeper hold. So he's kind of using this as maybe his defense. Certainly more of a heelish trait, to attach to Jey Uso here, and claiming he didn't actually lose.
He's got to take it up with the commission.
Which is who? Like Adam Pearce? I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, famously, a lot of results in wrestling get overturned, so he should really start campaigning.
Yeah, he could be convinced. So LA Knight does not like Jey Uso being ringside and warns Jey to stay in his seat. Jimmy Uso delivers a suicide dive to a commercial break. We come back with Jimmy delivering a super kick and a spear combo for 2. Knight delivers a superplex for a 2 count. Jey calls Knight a cheat ringside. I guess that's his new thing. He calls people cheaters, and he says this while Knight is pulling Jimmy's hair. He's saying Knight is pulling Jimmy's hair, and therefore he's cheating. This pisses Knight off. So Knight teases throwing Jimmy into Jey on the commentary desk. This allows, Jey then turns his back, and Knight just straight up big boots Jey at the commentary table. As Knight is about to deliver the BFT, Jey gets on the apron to distract, allowing Jimmy to roll LA Knight up for the victory here. So I have to say, like last week, this match felt very, very average to me. And again, I don't know, it doesn't do a whole lot for me to want to see that much more of it. But all that said, I do think like the star power is strong in this program. And I do think the story overall itself is being told pretty well. So I might be in the minority according to maybe some of the crowd reactions in how I feel about it.
I'm really interested to see how they're going to book this story with Solo Sikoa being an anti-bloodline figure and LA Knight also being that, but also being someone who is incredibly skeptical of Solo and his ambitions. I think it's a really interesting storyline that I'm honestly really excited to see how it plays out. You could not get me to care about an LA Knight and a Jimmy Uso match. And
no,
especially after I saw it last week. And I think I remember what I saw. Like you said, it was pretty forgettable, but this did nothing for me match wise.
Very unspectacular in ring. It's exactly, I think, like, I don't know, like what you would expect any match between these two to take place. Now, again, star power is strong. Crowds, I thought, like, were reactive to it in ways that were better than other matches on this card that I think were better worked in ring. So that kind of tells you maybe what a WWE audience responds better to, right? So afterwards, Knight is pissed. He attacks Jimmy. Jay comes out for the save. This is when Solo comes in to deliver the Samoan spike to Jimmy. And then it leads to LA Knight delivering the BFT to Jay. So at this point, both Usos are laid out. Solo and Knight again acknowledge one another for their success. So seems like a tag match that's being built up here.
Yeah, they still have to cross that sort of bridge in terms of Knight giving some trust over to Solo, because they aired that promo from Friday on tonight's broadcast where Knight made it clear he is. I mean, Solo wants to work alongside Knight, but Knight is not sold on this yet. So they still have some work to do in that part. And you do have to remember that Jacob Fatu is a part of this storyline as well. And he is going over to SmackDown, which in this week means staying at the Boardwalk Hall for a couple more hours. But he's going over to SmackDown to confront Solo Sikoa. So he is also a factor in this.
Speaking of SmackDown, we replay the scene from backstage at Night of Champions where Gunther and Aldis have their confrontation, and Cole lets us know that Gunther and Aldis have been sent home. Aldis, in fact, on administrative leave. So Pierce, for the time being, is running both shows, which I guess is convenient for this double taping. Aldis actually getting the suspension and not Gunther. So what do you think this is all leading to, other than maybe, I don't know, some scheduled time off for Nick Aldis?
I mean, the hopeful, like, if I'm being hopeful, I would say I would hope that maybe we get like a one-off with Aldis, because he has teased for ages that he is not retired and willing to work another match, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would be interesting. Again, I was very skeptical of the idea, just given, like, you know, they've done the same with Adam Pearce, and they've never put him in that position, nor would they, I feel like, suddenly have your GM be competitive with, like, arguably the most dominant heel in the company. But could it be a match where, like, Aldis gets beaten up but kind of, like, skirts by, like, the way an old timer veteran, you know, in his which his character would be, possible.
If I were to fantasy book that, I would make it Gunther humbles Aldis, and sort of that he becomes the GM kind of becomes like almost subservient to Gunther. Like he's
gonna beat respect into him, really.
Basically, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I wouldn't be against that, but I mean, they've teased it over and over, it feels like, for ages now, that Aldis is this guy who can wrestle, and it just happens to have a cushiony job in WWE. And I wouldn't mind that. I mean, him getting someone to represent him in a match would be very boring. And this just being a way to write him off would also be kind of lame. So
True. So in the back, we go to Usos with Jacob Fatu, who has shown up, and Jacob says he only takes orders from Roman, therefore he hasn't shown up yet until now. Jacob says the OTC has told him to go to SmackDown to finish all of this stuff with Solo Sikoa. And Jay says that means he's going to go too, because he intends on challenging Sami Zayn for the championship now that Oba isn't going to go after his title. So could that be the direction for SummerSlam? Sami versus Jay?
yeah, that's not a terrible idea. Spoiler alert, I don't think Fatu's gonna wrap up everything with Solo this week, despite the tribal chief's orders.
Lyra Valkyria is up next, and we get what is now sort of like a new look, I think you could say, for her.
Absolutely.
Debuting here, and let me just bring it up here because it's worth the visual. So, you know, either like very little or no makeup, or at least makeup to I don't know, like exaggerate how different.
She has a paleness to her now that is accentuated.
Hair down to her face, like she's kind of let the bangs out. I think it's great. So she lost her cool one time, she says, and suddenly everybody forgets that she was the bigger person all year. She says she's not proud of what she did to Bayley, but she's not losing sleep over it either. She has bit her tongue and sacrificed her success because she wanted to bring Bayley with her. She never wanted to hurt Bayley, but admits it felt good. And what did you think about the segment?
Since Lyra was called up, I was very big on her as a babyface. I thought she, her somewhat awkward style of talking was relatable. It was sort of a nice change of pace compared to a lot of characters on the main roster. And because of that, I was kind of hesitant to see what they would do with this heel turn. But this promo, I really enjoyed this, and I'm on board. I'm interested to see what they do with her here. It's interesting, and I feel like she nailed the look here. Like this is a completely different person right here.
Yeah. I always appreciate attaching a very stark visual transformation to somebody's heel or babyface turn, and to see it this quick, from her, I really appreciated it. And I enjoyed it. And it makes you pay attention, makes you feel like the person is putting a lot into this turn, so you should maybe take it seriously. I will say at present it does feel very sort of cartoonish witchy here, which isn't always a bad thing, especially when you're talking about timeless Tony Storm. Look at the most cartoonish of the cartoon, and look how great that is. I think pro wrestling allows for very cartoonish interpretations. So I'm very curious to see how the feud turns out, and what Bayley's response will be, and really Lyra's development. This is really the time to maybe take a big swing. So looks like she's doing that. Maxine is in the back, walks past Chad Gable, tells him she meant what she said last week, but apologizes. Gable stops her, says she could apologize some other time, and instead tells her to focus on her match tonight. So Raquel versus Maxine is our matchup next. The winner gets a IC title shot against Sol Ruca. So Maxine delivers a nice matrix bridge early on. Raquel quickly takes control with a slingshot suplex, then the torture rack. I will say this is where I really felt the crowd was ice cold for this one. Raquel goes for another slingshot suplex, but Maxine counters it with a DDT. Maxine goes for a spin kick, but Raquel catches her with the Tahana bomb, getting the victory here in pretty quick fashion, I want to say. Yep. So your thoughts?
Yeah, this was a really quick match, about 3 minutes, and it was hard to really get a lot out of this. I mean, the story they're pushing here is that Maxine Dupree remains an embattled character on the roster. But just in ring-wise, I thought she had some really fun stuff in here. Some fun kicks and leg drops and things like that. But yeah, a really quick match.
Yeah, she, again, I think you see improvement in her, but
yeah.
Her movement is not so fluid that you could buy her as a Kendall Gray or even somebody decently competitive on the main roster. So I think the booking was appropriate for her. But it also doesn't mean you can't tell compelling stories with somebody like that. Somebody who doesn't necessarily have to win matches really strong. Yeah. In fact, she should be losing in order to facilitate the transformation she's about to undergo.
I think that the crowd did take away from this segment significantly, because it kind of felt like we saw this really quick squash and there wasn't much drama in terms of who lost. It was just kind of all right, Raquel wins, let's move on to the next thing. It just felt like this was void of any real consequence because of how little the crowd cared. But yeah.
So we go back to Danhausen finding his I guess ruined lair, and what exactly was Dominic Mysterio's and JD's idea of messing up his lair? Well, it's toilet paper and banana peels.
Yeah, so, very juvenile.
I mean, exactly what you would expect out of the chicken nugget guy, right?
That's true.
Liv Morgan comes in saying, "This is what you get," toilet paper and banana peels. Danhausen claims he doesn't even remember what he even did to Judgment Day, so Liv has to remind him about the curse, about shocking Danhausen, about taking the money, and Liv tells him to make this right, and Danhausen says, "Okay," and we go on to our next match, which is JD McDonough versus Chad Gable here. JD is I would say no longer showing the effects of the electrocution. So
no, back to 100%.
I will say behind between Raw and SmackDown, there have been pretty inconsistent effects of this electrocution. We see it affects Zack Ryder and the Miz, Kit Wilson and the Miz, to an extent Zack Ryder, where they only say their catchphrases. I suppose for JD, he doesn't really have a catchphrase, so he just gets shocked.
Yeah.
All right, so Gable comes in, starts. Well, by the way, Dom is wearing Danhausen's custom Knicks jersey. That was the gift to him. Gable delivers the ankle lock, and Dom pulls the apron to let JD grab it early on. Dom distracts, allowing JD to drive Gable's knee into the steps as we go to commercial break. Gable comes back with his rolling kapu kicks, but JD counters the last one with a standing Spanish fly for a 2 count. Dom distracts again, allowing JD to deliver a top rope Spanish fly this time. Very high angle landing for JD here, almost a little bit scary here. Danhausen then shows up, telling Dom that he has his money, so leads Dom on a chase out of the arena. This distraction allows Gable to hit the Chaos Theory. JD counters that into a pinfall, but Gable recounters into the ankle lock for the victory here. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, there was some goofy stuff happening at ringside, but Gable and JD put on a pretty solid match here, and definitely one of the better performances on a show which was kind of lacking in the in-ring department. Yeah, despite the overbookedness of the finish with Danhausen and everything, like the actual wrestling here was pretty fun.
Yeah, I agree. In ring, I thought like these two were really strong together. I will say, I think despite that, this was still a pretty quiet crowd to me. Like from what I sense, up until the Danhausen stuff, this was a crowd that I thought responded really well to maybe like those elements of the show, less so on just even the in ring. So afterwards, Danhausen has left a briefcase ringside, and once you know it, Dom and JD open it, and it's just exploding powder, white powder. So there you go.
Not as bad as getting a fireball to the face, which one Tony D'Angelo took on NXT last week.
They saved that for the big money angles, you know. So now blinded, Danhausen takes his jersey back. Meanwhile, Raquel meets Danhausen up on the ramp, so she gets the jersey back. So Dom has taken it back as he wipes his face with the New York Knicks jersey. So
is this going to be the new MFTs and Wyatt Six fighting over a lantern?
There will be way more crowd engagement for this Knicks jersey than it was for the Bray Wyatt lantern.
Goes without saying, but
I also think like a Danhausen storyline, like this works really well, more so than just like, I don't know, using that sort of MacGuffin for like a Wyatt Six MFTs thing, which I don't know.
Yeah,
I almost forgot about.
I would prefer they sort of keep this away from like Liv Morgan facing Io Sky. Like I thought that was a little too big of a match to put the goofy sort of cursing on. I wasn't a big fan of that happening at Night of Champions, but
this feels to me like specifically between Dom and Danhausen something to culminate towards the MSG show where I imagine maybe you'll get a Jalen Brunson coming out to, I don't know, help Danhausen or something for a big moment. But it's all working really well. Like Danhausen continues to feel like a very strong part of this show, and I think pairing him with Dom is really the perfect thing. Then in the back we got Austin Theory with Maxine sharing a bit of a scene, and this is where Austin Theory kind of questions Maxine about what that interaction was with Chad Gable, and Maxine says it's complicated with Chad. Theory says this is simple, pointing to the two of them. And says if you want to go back down that road, well, maybe this isn't working out. So this is when the Alphabet Academy come in to check on Maxine, asking if she's okay. Maxine says she doesn't know. What is this relationship between Maxine and Austin Theory?
I don't know. I mean, it seems like he's trying to sort of become her new mentor, her muse, or something like that. And I assume this sort of culminates with something like Theory and Chad having some sort of match, I would assume. I don't know how I mean, I would assume you'd want to tie Maxine into that somehow, but then you do need to add someone else into the equation as well.
Yeah, I mean, Alpha Academy is there, like a reunited Alpha Academy with Gable and Otis and Tazai taking on some remnants of the Vision. That feels like such a big step down for the Vision.
I really think this is something that you go forward with it with just Theory, like,
sure,
because like the Vision are just taking such a downgrade to go into like a mid card program like this that doesn't even have like a title attached to it. It's just like a mid card angle.
I am intrigued to see like what the reveal is here, because I mean, they want us to maybe think romantic relationship, but clearly it's not that, because otherwise I don't think like Theory would be so offended by Gable and Maxine sharing some sort of like, apologetic moment, right? So yeah, it calls to suggest maybe some form of mentor-mentee relationship between the two.
Which, by the way, I don't know. There are way better people to have mentors on the Raw roster than Austin Theory, who has just been down on his luck recently.
Roman Reigns with Jacob Fatu is our main event segment for this edition of Raw, and he is quickly interrupted by Seth Rollins, who, comes out to, I think, a great ovation. They stare down for a while, and this crowd reacts well to the both of them, giving us a combination of Seth's theme and OTC chants. Rollins says, "Hello, my brother." He says, "We've been tied together for 14 years. How old were you, Jack, when the Shield debuted?"
Oh man.
You don't have to answer. Don't answer. Don't answer.
I think for the health and the mental health of all the listeners, I'm not going to answer that question.
Okay. The Wii was a system. Then was it not, or was this pre-Wii? Anyway, whatever. Rollins says, "You are holding my title, and it's time to collect." Reigns says, "Get back to the back of the line. You haven't beaten anybody to earn a shot," which to me felt like a real shot at Braun Breaker. Anyway.
Yes.
Rollins says, "When it comes to you, I am always at the front of the line. You owe me for everything you've done, and for everything you are. I own you. I own you in the ring. I own you in your head, and I own you in your heart." He owns his heart. How sweet. He brings up WrestleMania 41, where he says he pinned him and took his wise man. WrestleMania 40, where he sacrificed himself so Cody could end his reign. And he says, "You beat everybody in your 4 years as champion, except for me. Not to mention the greatest cash-in of all time." He says, "I've owned you since the day I put a steel chair in your back and
remember that?
the Shield." No, I don't know. I think I need a reference to it. He says, "I'm not here to ask. I'm here to give you something. Everything you say you are that great. Your Mania record will never be broken, but you haven't done one thing. You have never beaten me," which I'm not so sure about that one. Quickly looking up maybe their cage match record, I feel like you'll find that to be bullshit, but maybe he needed to add a specific qualifier to it, like, "You never beat me in your 4 years." Like maybe that would be valid, but like Reigns has pinned Seth Rollins, in fact.
So anyway. You don't sound too hot on this rivalry?
I am hot on the rivalry. I'm not hot on this part of the explanation because because it's just bullshit. This segment, in fact, was terrific, and it continues here with Reigns' retort here. Well, first of all, Rollins actually suggests that this may be your last time to avenge that, because we're that much closer to the end, you and I, than the beginning. And he says, "One day you will go into the Hall of Fame, and I might even induct you. But if you don't accept this challenge, you will never escape the ghost of Seth Rollins." So he says, "How about it for old time's sake?" Rollins says, "I don't want to beat you. I need to beat you. I need to beat you in front of my whole family. So I accept." And that is our match for SummerSlam: Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns. Your thoughts on the segment and the match itself?
Yeah, I thought this was a stellar segment. Seth, I mean, it's really hard to make a big fight out of thin air, essentially, when two guys have not crossed paths for a while. But they really pulled on the history between these two in this segment in a way that was really effective. And I enjoyed, the monologue that Seth gave. I like this sort of trend that we've seen in Roman Reigns as of late, where in all of his rivalries, his ego kind of gets the best of him and it reels him into matches. CM Punk, convinced him to pick him for WrestleMania. Jacob Fatu talked his way into a match with Roman Reigns. Fatu wasn't the most qualified person when he faced Reigns earlier this year. Seth Rollins, per Roman's assessment at the start of this, hadn't beaten anyone that made him a worthy contender, but he talked him into another matchup. And I think it's just an interesting sort of theme of Reigns' character, that he is this person who, if you really tap into his emotions, he can kind of award things to people that he wouldn't necessarily, thinking more with his more logical side, necessarily do.
Yeah, I thought it was a terrific segment from Seth Rollins in I don't even want to say like specifically pointing out like, arguments from their history in order to like, get you interested in the match. Like these are like major sort of like loose ends that I think Roman would want to avenge, like the embarrassment at WrestleMania 40, and then having, Rollins take the wise man from him. I think these are all things that are worth the match alone. And I thought Rollins did a great job of like giving you a very big, serious one to make you feel like this was something bigger than just like for the championship, but something that is tied to their history. I thought his line about like, talking about how they're much closer to the end than they are to the beginning. And again, the reminder that we're 14 years post their debuts on the main roster.
So crazy.
That is insane. And that, I don't know, maybe adds a certain level of like, maybe emotional weight to it all, knowing that like this could be among the last times you may get this like singles match with these two in their physical primes, you could still say, with the two of them. My only sort of like maybe criticism of it is just like trying to pull the wool over our eyes about like Roman never having beaten Seth, which I've just brought up here, like on the May 29th edition of Raw from 2017. You had Roman Reigns defeat Seth Rollins, among other times on television. So maybe he only means like I don't know, pay-per-view or something.
I think he was referring to Reigns' last title reign, the huge multi-year one, because when they faced off, it was a DQ finish, correct?
DQ finish in 2019. Are we talking about that?
Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, pulling the wool over our eyes is possibly the best way to describe it.
But it's a minor criticism, and it certainly doesn't take away from, I think, like the great job that Rollins did here in the promo, and it's a big match. Now, again, was this always in the cards? Was this always going to be the plan? I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. It's not that Rollins hasn't been teasing Reigns. Like he was in the tournament and said enough there about wanting, to have his championship back.
There's nothing about this rivalry that is necessarily attached to like the point in time that we're at right now. Like the only thing that really makes it relevant now is that Roman has a title. But realistically, Seth could, if Roman still has the title 6 months from now, 9 months from now, 3 months from now, he could come out and cut the same promo and it would all make sense. Mm-hmm. So it wouldn't surprise me if this was the type of program that they just had in their back pocket and said, whenever we pull this out, people are going to love it and it'll make sense thematically. And we're just going to use it when we need to use it. And maybe that was the situation here. I mean, we are sort of getting a little, we're speculating here, but that seems plausible to me just because this isn't attached to anything that happened last week,
Yeah. Like, and again, it's not so much an issue, for me being able to get into the match now, because often like these sort of pivots are for the benefit of, the show that we're about to like go to at SummerSlam. And I think like I could buy it enough through like an explanation like this, but it's more about like, a question of how smooth they landed the plane versus like whether or not they actually landed it. Does it follow the narrative path that they have been setting up over the past month to get us to this point? Or is it just a, cool match? Let's just like change course so that we can get to it like, immediately. I do think like that deserves to be criticized, because you want a full, complete story, from beginning to end. But they do have the time to tell a full and complete story from now until SummerSlam. And it's a big match, Do you think it's the type of big match that will make a difference for SummerSlam?
That's interesting. I mean, I think that the coming weeks are going to sort of decide that. I don't know if right now this is a matchup that is necessarily this huge money fight, right? Like, at least not in the way that, like, going back to WrestleMania and comparing how we had, CM Punk versus Roman Reigns. I think that sort of had a much bigger immediate buy-in from fans. That this one, I don't necessarily feel has the same amount of attraction, but they have weeks to promote it and sell it, and because of the huge lore and history that they can pull from between these two guys, I think that there's huge potential for this to be a big fight feel by the time we get to August.
Agreed. So currently for SummerSlam, we got Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins for the World Heavyweight Championship, Liv Morgan versus Io Sky for the Women's World Championship, Oba Femi versus Brock Lesnar in Hell in a Cell. And I would assume for people who may have gone on and read SmackDown spoilers, which I have not yet, maybe more announced even there. But we will talk about that on Friday with myself and Neil Flanagan when we talk about WWE SmackDown. But Jack, your thoughts overall on tonight's show?
Yeah, I think this was a really productive show in terms of setting up big angles for SummerSlam. This wasn't a show that if you were someone who is really big on the in-ring action, I would say you should probably watch. There was a lot of talking, and among the 5 matches, 2 of them just barely passed the 5-minute marker or really hovered around that same area. So it was really short on the match time. So I don't think that necessarily makes it a bad show because, like I said, the way they set up a lot of really big matches for SummerSlam were through pretty great segments. Just not a big night for wrestling, I think.
No, which I don't necessarily think is the worst thing for Raw. But when you're talking about a 2.5 hour edition of the show, yeah, you probably expect a little bit more. But this crowd wasn't responding that well to some of the wrestling that they did give them, and I feel
they wanted the cinema.
This was a crowd that wanted cinema. They wanted star power, and I feel like there was this was a show that featured Roman and Seth in a pretty big segment to close, Oba Femi and Brock Lesnar to start. So it was bookended by 2 very major relevant SummerSlam main event type of setups. So that was there, and I thought it was at least in terms of news a pretty satisfying and relevant edition of the show. So those are our thoughts on the show itself. We're about to go into feedback in the Post Wrestling Cafe portion. Jack Wannan, though, I want to give you the floor to maybe promote what you've been working on at postwrestling.com and what you can, where people can follow you and your thoughts.
Yeah, of course. I'm part of a multi-person, hardworking team at postwrestling.com trying to cover all the wrestling news, combat sports news around the clock. We're just coming off a really great weekend where we were able to cover all the big events, Forbidden Door, Slammiversary, NXT, Night of Champions, all that. And, we're putting together some fun stuff. And one thing that we've been doing recently that I'm really proud of, and you just saw it flash on the screen there, is our post-daily news updates. And I'm the voice of some of those. It is 6 to 8 minutes per day, a daily news update running you through all the news happening in the wrestling world. I'm someone who really enjoys reading news stories and consuming all the news, but if you don't have the time for that and you just need a few minutes a day to get caught up on everything, subscribe to the Post Wrestling Cafe, and we have that there for you 5 days a week. On all socials, I'm Jack Wannan, JCKWANNAN, and yeah.
There is so much great work being put on our written, in the written form on postwrestling.com. And I recognize much of our audience only consumes the audio. So I think these audio news updates are a great sort of bridge, to give you the tremendous work that you, Neil, John, Brandon have been doing, but in audio form for people to listen to. And those are available pretty much on a daily basis for double patrons. But today's edition with Jack recapping this weekend's events and talking all about the news is available for all patrons at postwrestling.com. All right, so we're about to head over to the XL side, but to all of you guys listening on the free feeds, catch you guys on Wednesday.